Hey everybody, Josh the RV Nerd here at Haylett RV of Coldwater, Michigan, and today we got ourselves a good old-fashioned knockdown, drag-out, luxury fifth wheel fist fight. And try to say that 3 times fast because it took me 3 times to get it right. And what we're going to be looking at today is the Keystone Montana and the recently significantly improved Jayco North Point. Now, in years past, if you'd asked me one versus the other, I had pretty much made it rain on Montana. But with what North Point has done, the way that they have stepped up, I kind of put them on a pretty even keel right now, and that's why I wanted to put them out here. I think at the core, they're going to accomplish the base main qualities of a luxury fifth wheel very, very well. They each have some little touches and variances between them that will be deal breakers for a very discretionary buyer like we're looking at in this segment right here. So that's what I want to look at. What I want to really specifically focus on is where they're not the same, but where they're different, or where they're the same but different, if that makes any kind of sense. And a real quick housekeeping note, we are specifically discussing the Montana. It's just called Montana. That is the higher level luxury full timing fifth wheel from the Keystone Group. We are not looking at the Montana High Country. It also qualifies, I do believe, as a luxury fifth wheel. It absolutely also has a full-time RVing warranty. It is certainly at a different trim level though. And I believe I actually already have a separate Montana versus High Country comparison video if you want to learn what we're looking about there. What I specifically want to zero in on is the North Point versus the Montana. And we're not going to be discussing the Montana Legacy thing. That is an optional bundle of equipment that is really, what it kind of does is it will take a Montana and elevate it up to kind of the level of a Pinnacle, which is the step beyond a North Point. And that's actually a very common misnomer. A lot of customers will actually come in and say, I want to look at the top fifth wheel from each company. I want to look at a Montana versus a Pinnacle. And they certainly do have some similar qualities. But if you really boil it down, a Pinnacle is the next trim level above a Montana. The tricky part is that most manufacturers stop building fifth wheels at the level of a North Point or Montana. Jayco is unusual in that they do go beyond that. So that being said, let's start busting in between the two here and see which one ends up standing and which one gets counted out at the end for you. One of the first things I always like to hit on these videos is pricing. It's a big deal. Let's just get the elephant out of the room. And it's not as obvious as it could be. North Point, a base model North Point, is actually several $1,000s less than a Montana. But by the time you're done optioning and equipping it the way that you're probably going to want it, they will be almost dead on even. And for that comparison, what I used was the 3120 rear living Montana versus the 310 RLTS North Point. It's the same 35-foot-ish triple slide rear living room. And if you actually boil down the base cost versus the actual ownership cost once it's built the way you want it, the North Point you could say is less expensive by a chunk of money, but by the time you're done optioning it the way that you're probably going to want it, a lot of things that are optional on a North Point tend to be standard on a Montana, so it pretty much ends up washing out in that regard. So what else do they have different between them? Well, if we're talking the history of fifth wheels, there is no other fifth wheel that has been more successful in history than the Keystone Montana. Not only are they the best-selling fifth wheel in the history of RVing, that's a lot, they are also the #1 selling fifth wheel to full-time RVers for 18 consecutive years. It's insane the level of success they've had. And it's very impressive. Anybody can hit the top once. It takes something special to stay there. Now, to go along with that, Montana does have a warranty that allows for full-time RVing. It is a 1-year warranty that also has a really comprehensive 3-year structural coverage. And that is better than almost anybody else in this segment. Almost everybody. Because if there's one thing you can always depend on with a Jayco, it's that they have that best-in-class 2+3-year warranty. And when you are talking the Jayco luxury fifth wheels, which actually, if you're talking from Eagle up, so Eagle, North Point, Pinnacle, Seismic, Talon from Jayco, all carry 2+3-year warranties with allowances for full-time RVing. and there is nobody else surpassing that right now. Jayco has always prided themselves on having the best warranty out there, and they've positioned themselves for that accordingly. So you'll hear some manufacturers like to advertise they have a 3-year warranty. They don't. They have a 3-year structural coverage that virtually everybody has. So when it comes to actual RV coverage, it's always hard to beat Jayco. So let's shift to construction. And they both kind of got each other a little bit. So in general, overall, there's a bunch of little minutia differences, but the overall core construction between a Montana and a North Point, it's so similar. And it makes sense. They've both been doing it a long time, Jayco and Keystone. They both know how to put something together that works really well, and they're both doing it very nicely, actually. One little variance that you'll see is in the decking used in the roof and the floor. Montana has a 3/8 OSB roof deck. It's fully walkable. You can walk on their slide boxes, which is actually a pretty common quality I've found in the RV industry. We just don't talk about it very much because there's not usually a lot of reason to walk on slide roofing. But they have it is technically an OSB floor decking, but it's a material called Dynaspan. And it comes in like 24-foot links, so it's primarily seamless. So there's fewer seams in this floor. One of the other benefits to it is there are benefits actually to OSB. It has a higher shear strength. It's harder for it to rip and tear and break. That's not usually much of an issue in a floor construction, but the material they are using in their flooring of these luxury Montana fifth wheels has 50% more horizontal load bearing capacity as compared to even tongue and groove plywood that you'll find in the North Point. Whereas Jayco loves their plywood. They love plywood over at Jayco. They like to refer to OSB as beaver puke, which always makes me laugh every time. But a couple things here. So they're just like Montana. They have an aluminum studded floor and wall construction and all that, but they're using 5/8 tongue and groove plywood floor decking, which is certainly not an inferior build. That is still better than a lot of RVs that still have OSB general roof decking or floor decking. Not the kind of Dynaspan stuff Montana's using, but normal 4x8 OSB sheets. So Jayco's still absolutely in a superior category, and you could actually still argue they do have the superior floor construction if there happens to be water penetration, which is flowery sales talk for leak, mind you. Both OSB and plywood will swell. Once OSB is compromised, though, it ain't ever coming back. Plywood will basically return back to its original shape once it dries out. So it's a longer term, more reparable thing. The idea, though, is you take care of your seals and stuff, and guys, that doesn't matter. And you can tell we're from the north here because we say guys, not y'all. Which, by the way, other northern folks like myself, Midwestern Yankee types, y'all is Y''ALL, not YA''LL. Just so you know, that's like insulting someone's mother's sweet tea down south. You just don't do it. But Jayco's roof construction, they are using what they call their Magnum Truss roof system. And in the North Points and the Pinnacles, it's a double vaulted, what they call Magnum Truss XL6 system, where it has double vaulted trusses inside and out. Montana does something similar, but at the end of the day, the combination of what Jayco's doing, their plywood roof decking, it does give them a heavier roof load rating. So which one's built better? I don't really think either one has a significant advantage in this regard, because if you really compare where each one is better built, they're both already in a superior category. They are both in the realm of diminishing returns. And I think it just boils down to which area of the RV do you want your construction to give you just a nudge more peace of mind? Because I don't really see a significant benefit, a significant advantage one way or the other. So let's jump over to exterior features. What I've really found on a Montana is they wrap a very nicely built shell around you. They make sure they have all the really important core features outside, like 6-point hydraulic automatic leveling. They have a really good ride and handling package. They have the 0G stable steps. I like that they have a standard rear receiver hitch that is optional on something like a North Point. But what you'll really find is a full luxury Montana like this, I think, is really designed for people who are going to spend a lot of time inside the RV, because that is where I believe the greatest amount of attention to detail is spent. And in fairness, it is hard, I think, to trump what they're doing on the inside of the RV. That being said, when North Point stepped up, one of the things they did was they gave you a lot of excitement right from the word go, right when you see the RV the very first time. And what I want to hit on over here real quick is kind of a rapid fire series of things where I think North Point has broken out and done a really good job in this segment. Things that are easy to overlook, but I like them. Now, both Montanas and North Points, like almost any big fifth wheel, have the ability to be generator prepped, which is not what we're looking at here. This is a standard non-gen prep unit next to us. And if you just look at the cost, the Montana generator prep alone costs less. The Jayco Gen Prep costs more because you're doubling your propane capacity. You're going from 2 30-pound tanks to 3 40-pound tanks. You go up to 120 pounds of propane capacity. That is really awesome. So even if you're not super concerned about a generator, if what you're looking for is just massive propane capacity, a North Point and Pinnacle might be a way to go. Now, it costs more to get you there. So I do think that is a wash. And by the time you had Gen Prep and a generator, the cost between the two evens out. But remember, you do get double the propane here when you go with the Gen Prep or sometimes called off-grid package on some of these bigger Jayco fifth wheels. And this is an exciting one. Now, it can really vary by floor plan. But Jayco has become currently the industry exclusive user of actual Blackstone griddles in the RV industry. And that is something that you will definitely see on the North Point when there is the ability to add an outside kitchen where this is available. Like, we're looking at a 377R LBH right now, but remember, that is a more floor plan specific feature. It's not that Montana's bad about giving you an outside hookup though, and don't get me wrong, these are a little spendy. You could get a Montana, you could add a Blackstone to it and probably end up in the exact same place. It's just really cool that they're included from North Point on those specific models. Another area I think North Point takes the cake are a pair of safety items. The first is the J Smart lighting system, originally introduced to Jayco through the Eagle series. And if you're not familiar with it, I believe we've got some separate footage of just that, but basically, both Montana and North Point, when you shift into reverse, there are lights in the tail lights that will shine bright and illuminate your path in the back. So if you're using like a rear camera or a spotter, or you're just trying to eyeball it, you have good visibility. Jayco does take it a step further though. The smart lighting stands for signals, markers, and reverse travel. So if you flip on that turn signal right there, all of the lights on this side of the RV and some extra upper clearance lights, they will blink along with that turn signal to give other drivers on the road a clearer understanding of what you're doing. And when you are talking about an RV like a North Point, which starts at 35 feet and then just keeps going and going and going like the Energizer Bunny, letting people know where you're going with some lights amidships, that's a handy thing, I think, if you're going to be towing and going. And you can't get away from talking about a Jayco without talking about three things: 2-year warranty, plywood, and Goodyear tires. And what they're using here, I kind of feel is a best-in-class quality. That being said, the tires on a Montana are by no means substandard. My dad, Mr. Haylett, tows around a Montana 3120, and he tows. They've been from here to Florida and every which way but loose. Never had a tire issue. And actually, one of the things he's always talking about as Montana is that it is one of the best pulling, best feeling, best tracking RVs he's ever owned in his, well, he's been camping longer than I've been alive, so, you know, figure that out. But, so, what Montana's doing with their suspension package and stuff works, and it works very, very, very well. It's hard to argue against Goodyears, though. When they're 87 mile an hour rated, which is more than you should ever be towing. And these are the Goodyear Endurance Beast tires. You literally can't just take these tires and slap them on other RVs. Jayco had to re-engineer their chassis and suspension setups to be able to accept these larger tires. And they have that high speed rating, low capacity, and they only need 80 PSI. So you don't have to go to like some industrial tire shop to get like 120 PSI tire inflation or anything like that. So as always, it is hard to beat what they're doing there. But I want to point something out over here on the Montana. And again, it is based largely off Mr. Haylett's own feedback as an actual RV user, tower, and goer. He's a big fifth wheeling kind of guy, has been for many, many years. The Road Armor suspension package you're looking at on these Montanas, it works. It works well. And I think one of the things that makes it a little different, if I get you in here a little closer, you can kind of see it's got a rubber shock dampener on the bottom and the top of the chuck right there, of the connection point. And like Jayco uses a MORryde suspension system. It's absolutely fantastic. It also works very, very nicely. One thing I like about this here on the Montana, though, is that it shock dampens both above and below. So instead of just controlling bouncing, it will actually help prevent wiggle and jiggle from getting too violent in the first place. And as a result, it gives this thing really smooth ride and handling. Also, if you are controlling road shocks and jolts here at the ground level, then that violence doesn't get translated up through the sidewall, rattle every cabinet, everything in those cabinets, every fitting, fixture, fastener, and the roof construction. So if you're holding it together better at the ground level, ideally you're putting less stress through the rest of the structure. I don't think that the North Point suspension is inferior by any means. I just do think this might work maybe slightly better in actual practicality terms. But again, we're splitting hairs here, and we're going to be splitting a lot of hairs between these two RVs. Kind of like when we start talking heating and cooling, we're splitting hairs here. One of the things I really respect about both Jayco and Keystone is that if they claim something is hot and cold camp capable, they actually completely test their RVs. They go to a giant hot cold chamber where you can control the temperature of the room. They'll crank it up to 100, leave it for a while, crank it down to 0, leave it for a while. They're doing this testing with water in the tanks, with the heat going, with the slides open. They both do that. And not every manufacturer who claims hot cold camp capability actually does that. A lot of them throw a layer of magic foil in the basement and call it 4 seasons. Jayco and Keystone both completely 0 to 100 degree test, at least 0 to 100 degree test, every one of their Cougars, Eagles, North Points, Pinnacles, etc. They're full-time RV warranted RVs. And that's something I really respect because that is an expensive process that they run that through. They do that for your benefit, they do it for your peace of mind and your protection. That being said, I think in terms of that, from the heating aspect, I'm going to give a slight nod toward the Montana, and here's why. I say it because there's a couple things that are optional on a North Point that are just standard on a Montana. So I give a little nod to Montana there. I think North Point can be built to be equivalent in this way, but again, at their base state, both Montana and North Point are well passing the 0 to 100 degree 4 seasons standard. There's no real definition of 4 seasons. 0 to 100 degrees is kind of my definition of 4 seasons. And in Michigan, we get all 4 seasons very, very evenly. So I think that's a good barometer. Now, when people say 4 seasons, it depends on where you live, because 4 seasons in Alabama and Georgia, different than 4 seasons in Michigan, different than 4 seasons in Maine, you know. So what I'm getting at is a Montana has 12-volt tank heaters standard on them. Now, you can option a thing onto a North Point called the Extreme Weather Package that'll basically do the same thing. Another thing on a Montana is they have a 16,500 BTU heat pump built into their air conditioner unit standard. That, again, is an optional item you can apply to a North Point, but out of the box, I feel a Montana takes the win on that one. But again, there's no reason either RV should have a significant issue in that regard. And a quick by the way, because it is such a big deal to a lot of people, both North Point and Montana have standard dual 15,000 BTU Coleman quiet airs that are both whisper ducted. So both Montana and North Point have the quietest possible air conditioning systems you could ever experience. I've been in both when they're running compared to other things that claim quiet air. The other ones, they might be quieter than a non-baffled air whatsoever. North Point, Montana, though, they're as quiet as you can possibly be in every area of the RV. Now, I kind of want to bounce room to room, zone to zone between the two. And what I want to specifically hit on is where I think each RV brand goes above the other and where they snipe each other. And really, we're splitting hairs, guys. This is really going to come down to what I kind of just call a gadget battle, because they're both gorgeous. They're gorgeous RVs. I don't believe there's a single customer who would love one and hate the other. I think it's just a matter of which one would you love a little more. You know, it's like comparing the Police Academy movies, really. It's like rating them from most impressive to least most impressive. Anyway, in a Montana, what you're going to see is you're going to get dual section day-night shades versus just night shades in the North Point. And that's the level of little minutia that we're going to have to look at here to really compare the two. Also, something that's a little different. Now, this is, I think, a little bit of a wash. In a Montana, the extra countertop things like we're looking at back here, those are like a nice actual formed purpose use hardwood material, whereas North Point tends to use a lot of thermal foil. Now, thermal foil has its own benefits. It's lightweight, it's super water resistant, but this looks gorgeous. It has such a good hand feel. It doesn't feel plasticky. It feels luxury. It feels wooden. One other area here that Montana, I think, does tend to snipe North Point slightly, and you won't see this in Jayco until you go to a Pinnacle, and that is the cabinet style construction. North Point has fantastic cabinetry. It's pocket screwed. It's made with lumber core cabinetry, which means it does have a wood core in here. There is a wrap around it though. A Montana though does not have a wrap. It is a like actual stain treated hardwood cabinet style construction, which God forbid again, if either of them ever got exposed to water, the North Point, you could probably easily do some cabinet repairs and be fine. Those materials are readily available. The Montana though, generally speaking, it's not going to like swell. There's no sticker paper that could swell and split and need to be replaced. So once again, it's that long-term peace of mind. Which one kind of speaks to you a little bit nicer? If all things were equal, yeah, you'd want this kind of cabinet construction every day of the week. You know, it makes sense. Is there anything wrong with the way North Point cabinet construction is used? No, that's what most of the RV industry uses. So it's the difference between, they're both past good. They're at least better. And I do believe that this is the best kind of cabinet style construction that you could find in the industry. And this is really one of those areas that I think which RV you prefer in this regard, it really depends on your level of tech proficiency and just how direct and simplistic you're looking for the operation of your RV. A standard luxury Montana, they don't have all the fancy touch screens and Bluetooth nonsense. They say, I want to walk in, I want to push that switch, I want to turn my lights on, I want to push that button, open my slides or awning or whatever. They're a very classic, simple, direct operation. There's no Bluetooth, there's no connection, there's no Bill Gates technology required to make this stuff happen. It's simple, it's easy, direct, it makes sense. A lot of people are going to like that. But if you are interested in any of the technology stuff, you have to spring for the entire Montana Legacy package to get a comparable in-command system. Whereas in a North Point, what you're getting by default is what I personally feel I think is the best tech package that has been introduced into the RV industry yet. And that is their BM Pro system. They call it J-Command because when you work at Jayco, you take literally any object, you add the letters J-A-Y in front of it, and you say, we made it. We invented it. That's marketing, baby. But it works like a champ. I love it. Now, you can go through, you can do all the text. It is nice that if you want to Bluetooth your phone to it, you can sit in bed, sit in your recliner, turn the air conditioning up and down, heating up and down. There's a lot of things that you can do with it. It's really, really cool. My favorite part about it, though, if you are still looking for that direct push button simplicity, they still have a direct, you don't have to have the screen on. You have direct access buttons where if you want to control that, you can select awning 1, awning 2, slide 1, 2, 3, 4, however many the RV has, extend, retract. You can still operate your most commonly used features like that right here. And you might have to do some panel scrolling to get through some of the other things. I'll give you the biggest pro tip on this whatsoever. Some of these screens on the BM Pro system scroll like you would scroll a website on your phone. And the moment you realize that, you go, oh my gosh. And it's easy to miss because some of the screens, like the one we're looking at, it lines up so perfectly with the visible display, you don't even think that you would have a scrolling screen. So by default, North Point wins in the technology area. But that is going to be considered detrimental for some RV owners who like, I'm not into all that technology stuff. So they're both really good in a different way, and I think it really depends on what your comfort levels are as an owner. I understand that the average buyer of a Montana or North Point, they're not me. They're not people like me who grew up with Nintendo and technology and computers and everything else. Like, I was there before the internet existed. I was there when it grew. You know, I'm a child of the internet. I was there at its start. My parents, not so much. My parents don't like all this stuff. Now, my dad, Mr. Haylett, he likes pushing the buttons, but I'm the one that has to hook it all up for him. And does he ever use it? No. No, he doesn't. So it really, I still think that there's a lot of value in what the base Montana is doing. It really makes a lot of sense for their target buyer. So what little living room gadgets does the North Point have? Well, quick mention, both Montana and North Point are completely carpetless in that slide out right there. Jayco uses a main floor deck matching linoleum, whereas you'll see Montana uses a material that looks a lot like you'd find on the decking of a really sharp, like high-end pontoon. It's, you know, liquid resistant, stain resistant. If you got to get down and scrub on it, you can do all that. So again, they're both accomplishing that in a different way. There's a couple little gimmicky things that you can see on a North Point though. One of them is the way that they handle their theater seating. Both Montana and North Point have heat massage seating, but the folks behind North Point had spent a lot of time in the industry designing toy haulers, and they brought a little bit of that influence with them without making it look toy hauler extreme by being able to convert between like a big comfy love seat, very handy for folks who are maybe a little thicker in the hips or around the midsection like I am here. Or there's still some of those crazy couples that actually like to snuggle up to one another. That's weird, right? Anyway. But they have a flip down armrest. So it's there when you need it, it's gone when you don't. And it actually does also include some power outlets in there, USB and household. So if you want to sit there, keep your phone running, plug something else in, you want to throw, it's heat massage seating, but sometimes it is nice to have a special extra heat pad just like right on the dead small of your back, you know, if you got a little like deteriorating disc action going on. And remember, a lot of people getting into a North Point or Pinnacle, they've been around the block a few times. They've lifted iron in their lifetimes. They might have a bad disc in their back, and having the ability to do that, that is nice. And it goes kind of along with the tech package thing that we already talked about on the North Point. These little pads right here, they are wireless. They communicate to the BM Pro system. But what's nice about this is, once again, what we're getting is direct access, just push button operation. You don't have to be a tech wizard. If you look at it, it says ceiling lights. Click ceiling lights, on, off. There's pendant lights. Now, what's great is you'll see multiple of these panels throughout a North Point. Each of them will do a little bit different thing depending on where they're located in the RV. The one in the kitchen, there's two in the bedroom. Each one in the bedroom does a little bit different thing depending on where it's positioned. They're very context sensitive. It makes a lot of sense. So once again, even if you're not a tech guru, you should not be intimidated by North Point. Another neat thing they do in the living rooms is right over here. These little, like a lot of their rear living rooms or anywhere that they have these little side stands in North Point, it opens up. It's a neat little hidden kind of storage chest area right there. These little side pockets, that's an area that a lot of manufacturers largely waste. And you know, it's a weird size pocket. It's like a tall vertical space, but there's definitely ways that you could still use that. And I will always prefer a manufacturer give me the option of storage versus deciding for me that you don't need that, you're not going to use that. So I really appreciate the little details Jayco does there, because the extra little labor time, the extra hinges, the extra hardware, that stuff adds up. Those are some of the dollars and cents involved in the North Point that maybe you don't see. So jumping into the kitchen, back in the Montana over here, they both have dynamite kitchens. They're both very good. Again, you're not going to be disappointed with either one. They're each going to have a couple features, though, that might move that needle one way or the other for you just a little bit, and I want to hit on a few of those that I see. So, quick note on the refrigerators. In both a North Point and a Montana, you're going to be looking at something like an 18 cubic foot big 4-door refrigerator. They both have a similarly sized residential fridge available. One of the things on that note that I like is in a Montana, they don't charge you extra to upgrade to a 2-way fridge. They just say pick your fridge, cost the same, camp how you please. You know, that's one of the things I like about these. Montana's very good at coffee bars. North Point has gotten better about that though, but Montana's just been so good about it for so long. You can see that they're using convection microwave ovens, which is great, and their sink set up here in the island. They have like a small, normal kind of like veggie prep sink, but Montana's are very good about also giving us like an extra large kind of farm sink right here. So if you got bigger pots and pans, or let's say you got like a little newborn baby over for the weekend, you could have a little baby bath in that thing right there, which is cool. But my favorite thing in a Montana is actually the way that they do the dining, because I think it's the best out there. I knew I'd forget something. One other quick note on the Montana fridge. Montana is very good. I would say overall they're currently a little bit better about getting you refrigerator access when the RV slides are closed. So like in-transit fridge access. That being said, it is absolutely a Northpoint's map. And if you look at the new Northpoint models, they are also doing a very good job of it. Overall, Montana currently just has a few more models that give you better fridge access than Northpoint. I do think that's going to wash out over time though. And it's funny because even before we were a Montana dealer at Haylett RV, if a customer come in, they'd say, hey, we were looking at a Montana. What do you guys have that compares to that? I would always be like, oh, this is going to be a hard day at the office because it's such a good product. I knew that I really had my work cut out for me, and it was often splitting hairs like we're doing today. But I also knew that if somebody talked about the Montana dining table, which has changed a little bit over the years, but it has always been the best in their class. They've always had such a good beat on this. I knew that was pretty much the kiss of death. There was a 9 out of 10 chance that they weren't going to buy from us. And I was really glad when we became a Montana dealer because I got so tired of fighting it all the time. It's such a good product. So both Northpoint and Montana are doing kind of what you're seeing here. I call it a diesel pusher style dinette, where you have 2 fixed chairs and then 2 guest chairs to go with it that fold away, put them under the bed, put them a bunch of different places. It's just the overall, the little functions that go into this, I think Montana really, it's not that the Northpoint's bad, it's just that Montanas are so good at this. So you might notice the table just extended a little bit. It actually has 2 ways to get a little bit larger depending on what you need to do with it, so that it can spend the rest of its time minimizing the impact it has on the walk-through space and kind of flow of the floor plan. But it becomes a lot more obvious when you add that second extension leaf, and suddenly now if you decide to pull out those extra guest chairs, or if you need a big like working desk space, you're doing some craft work, that big extra table extension is super handy. And just a quick A/B flash so you can really see what I'm talking about when I put it all the way back. Well, if we slide down here a little bit, you see that both Montana and Northpoint have what I call a no knee knocker dinette. There's no big posts or poles or pedestals or something like that. I got long legs. I look for that stuff. I smash my knees on stuff all the time here at Haylett RV. Little details though, again. Montana has this little thing I call the chair buddy. It's a little traveling lock. So you could take like one of those nylon straps that buckles together and keep the chairs all hooked together, but you don't have to. If you're getting ready to travel, it's got a little gas strap, you flip that down, it'll hold these chairs in place so they're not gonna go anywhere. And it's just one more simple, easy thing they do that just kind of takes it over the top for me. But Northpoint's no slouch. They got plenty of their own good features. One of them is the Jayco exclusive drinking water system. So you've got your normal faucet right here, but then you got this extra little guy. And basically what this does is it connects to what effectively looks like a 5-gallon Culligan jug. And in a Northpoint and a Pinnacle, it's actually stored in the underbelly. It has its own separate 12-volt pump. It's completely separate from any holding tanks on this RV. And it's great because instead of lugging along tons of like things of bottled water or something like that, you can have a big supply of fresh drinking water right there, right on tap at any point. Now there's one other really cool thing that goes along with that drinking water system, and it's one of the reasons that we are big time fans of the 2-way gas electric fridges that come in the Northpoints and the Pinnacles, because that drinking water system gives them an extra feature you just can't find everywhere else. In a Northpoint and Pinnacle 2-way gas electric RV fridge, you're not getting just a couple ice cube trays, you're getting an actual ice maker. And this is really neat. And this is like, you have to really dig hard to find this information. So if you appreciate stuff like this, hit that subscribe button because I'm really trying to go in depth here for you. That drinking water system is what feeds the ice maker in a Northpoint and a Pinnacle. So you are getting purified, filtered water in your ice that you're putting in your drinks, not the lake water that they pumped up from the campground. And maybe you do some outside filtration or you have an internal filter in your RV to take care of that. But it's awesome that Northpoint takes it above and beyond and making sure that you've got clean water, clean ice, clean everything going into this. And those jugs are so cheap. You can go to almost any grocery store now and they've got a little water filling station. They're simple, they're easy, they're very inexpensive compared to tons of bottled water. Now, like in Montana, you do have a convection microwave oven over here in the Northpoint, so I don't want to discuss that too much. What I want to look at, though, is what they are doing with that oven. turn it Oprah Winfrey for a second there. So they are going with a very kind of almost household looking 4-burner, like raised grid, cook station right here. They are higher output burners, so if you really, like, you want to actually boil a big pot of water, like you're going to make a whole bunch of ears of corn or something like that, you could do that here. You can see that we've got an extra large oven, and both, like Montana's oven's not small. It's just that the North Point oven is a little bit bigger. It looks and feels very home style. You know, it has a really a great feel to it. One thing that is nice about the Montana stovetop, though, since it doesn't have these raised grid things right here, it's flat, it's countertop flush. By default, it gives you a more obvious prep space. But North Point has a way around that. They include this large, like full stove covering cutting board cover right here. But the neat thing is, you don't have to just use it right there. You can actually kind of set up shop with that in a somewhat permanent area elsewhere in the RV. You can, if you want, add it right here to the end of the island. There's basically like a drawer that kind of pulls out and that slots right in place. So if you need it, you can give yourself some serious extra prep space. Now, I would say that you could put like a wastebasket or something under it, but both North Points and Montanas are very good about that. One other little detail I want to point out, and it's something that you really have to know what you're looking for to see. It is not very obvious. That microwave that we're looking at is also a heat exhausting out the side of the RV ventilating range hood. So like in your house when you're cooking up a storm and you click on the fan, it takes that hot air and it blows it outside of the RV. North Point does that. Montana actually doesn't. What Montana does is it has like a charcoal filter to take the smell out of the air, and then what it really relies on is that extra large like max air vent fan that you have up here, which is fine. Those things work great. That's what they're going to use for cooking heat exhaust. And it works fine. Again, my parents are Montana owners, users, enthusiasts, big time. It's the first time I've ever seen them go back into the same RV and model and floor plan 2 times in a row. So they have to be really happy with it. And my mother and I, we are very persnickety people. We are very picky, very specific in what we're looking for. And if a Montana is appealing to her, I know it's because it's firing on all cylinders. So I know that heat exhausting vent fan works because my mother is a serious campsite cook. The difference here, though, is that North Point does both the heat fan up top and the exhaust fan from the range hood. So how much of a campsite cook you are, that might kind of sway you one way or the other there. Now, it kind of flows through the kitchen and the living room, so I wanted to wait till after those before I mentioned it. But both Montana and North Point are very good about like overhead accent lighting. They just do it in different ways. Montana actually puts it above the crown molding, which looks so cool. It looks like an air traffic controller. But North Point puts it above the slide outs, which frankly accomplishes the exact same thing. So they do the same thing in a different way. I don't think either one's better. Let's hop upstairs. They're both doing some great things in here. Again, what I want to show you is what they're doing differently or where I think each one's a little bit better. North Point, you go to a sealed edge thermofoil counter here. I kind of mentioned that when we were talking about like the little sofa side stands. You know, in Montana, they'll tend to use wood there. North Point does a lot of this thermofoil kind of stuff. You see, they've got like a recessed stainless kind of sink right there. And they're doing some really cool kind of backlighting around that mirror, which is very nice to use as a night light or to be able to see what you're doing and get yourself ready. Now, if we look up top, both North Point and Montana use those extra large kind of rain censoring vent fans, so that's no big deal. Where North Point really takes it in here is the shower. Because where it was previously found only in specific Pinnacle models, every single North Point and Pinnacle from Jayco now has that like walk-in, very home style shower system here. It's about the same size as most Montana showers, but it just, the look of it's fantastic. And you are getting a 300-pound rated teak seat in there. If you need to sit to bathe for safety or convenience reasons, you can. Or you can just simply, flip it up and get it out of the way and have some more room. They're also both going to be using some pretty comparable height adjustable shower hardware. But notice those open kind of linen cabinet spaces right there on the North Point. That is one of those things that if I could change like one thing on a North Point, is that I would put doors back on those linen cabinets right there. I know it was to help save a little weight and whatnot, because it is a pretty heavyweight product. And North Point tends to weigh a little bit more, but it's not enough that you're going to change the tow vehicle, so I don't really think that matters too much. But Montana always gives us doors on bathroom cabinets. North Point does, depending on the floor plan. Sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. And here's another instance where I think they're both doing something superior than a lot of other people in this market segment. They've just each done a little bit different thing. Like I showed you how North Point has the backlighting around the medicine cabinet. Well, Montana does it under here, so if you want to be able to see at night, it'll cascade light down and reflect off all these bright surfaces and let you see what you're doing. So they're both doing that. Also, instead of thermal foil, Montana sticks with full solid surface materials here in the bathroom. So in that regard, I will give them a little bit of a nod, just because it does, neither functions better, neither is better functioning. It's just that this has a better feel. It has that look, the glitz and the glitter that you expect and kind of really look for when you're talking a luxury fifth wheel, you know? Now the bedrooms, like everything else, are really, really close. They each do a couple little things. Like Montana here, something that they're so good at is in the bed slide where we're looking and sitting currently. They, even with a king bed upgrade like we're looking at right now, they still include side stands and build household and USB outlets directly into the side stand on both sides of the bed. That is something that very few producers of fifth wheels do. Montana does it, has been doing it, does it by default. It is something I really like in these. Well, one of the things I love in North Points and Pinnacles, they're not just a 6.5 foot tall ceiling in the bedroom. They're 6.5 foot sidewall and vaulted. Like if you look at this piece of trim right here, you can see how it gets from smaller to bigger. It gives you more, when you're actually walking around in here, you're getting more effective, comfortable, functional headroom. And it's not like I can walk around a Montana, no sweat. I can stand in the shower, no sweat. But in a house, would you rather have 7 foot or 8 foot ceilings? It's the same thing. The extra couple inches just really let you, breathe a little bit. Now, it's not bedroom specific, but North Points do go ahead and include what is an aftermarket feature for a lot of folks in RVs, and that is like an LTE Wi-Fi extender access point, kind of like a built-in router for your camper. And again, I think that really speaks to how I think North Point's looking toward a younger audience who's coming into RVing, where Montana, I think, really caters nicely to a more established, seasoned audience who's been around for a while. So thank you very much for tuning in today. If you appreciate what you see here, if one or the other looks right for you, if you have more questions, if you need information, all we ask in return for that effort is you give our team in here at our family-owned and operated facility the opportunity to meet you, talk to you, earn your business. And it doesn't matter where you live, guys. They're on wheels. We can get them from here to there. So if you need hitching, pieces, parts, trades, finance, truck and trailer package deals, you need the RV delivered or anything in between, the only thing we won't do is hidden dealer fees. So if you like all the info here, and if that sounds fair to you, hit the little subscribe button. Take care, stay safe, have fun, and happy Haylett camping, everyone.